Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Here in Britain we're known for our tiny cute little tank engines and everybody loves these things. But that's not today's video. Today we're looking at the absolutely massive ones. Right, Britain's largest tank engines then. First of all, a few rules for doing this. First of all, they have to have been made available in model form. If they don't exist as models, then I've got nothing to show, so they have to be available in model form. That does beg the question though, what would this list look like if we ignored what was made in model form and just looked at Britain's largest tank engines? If you want to undertake that, let me know. Let me know how the list differs. Second of all, I'm going by weight, not necessarily by size or volume, so bear that in mind. Thirdly, we need to have a good definition of tank engine, which seems strange, but towards the end, this will come clear. So, I googled it. Here is the definition I am working from. Right, so a steam locomotive carrying fuel and water receptacles in its own frame, not in a tender. I think that's fair enough. I agree with that. So we're going to jump into the top 10 now. I'm going to show you each loco and I've also got a fun fact to share with you, at least one fun fact for each engine. So, and they're only fun facts if you're a train enthusiast. If you're not, they're obviously not going to be remotely fun facts. So the first engine is the Hornby Pug. No, it isn't. The first engine is this. This is the Great Western 52XX. And to be honest with you, I'm quite surprised that this is only in 10th place. I thought this was going to rank much higher than this. But the 52XX, obviously used on the Great Western and introduced in 1923, they were initially used for short distance coal trains, but you can still see some of these in use today on various heritage railways, and a 52XX is a mainstay on the Dartmouth Steam Railway, which runs from Paignton to Kingswear. So if you want to see one of these, that's a good place to go and see one of them. So yeah, the 82-ton 52XX Great Western tank engine. In 9th place, we have this. We're going to the LMS for this one, and this is the 1945 Fairburn tank, which weighs in at a couple of tons heavier, 84.7 tons. And there's only 2 of these engines preserved in total, but one of them famously was preserved in Caledonian Railway Blue, which was obviously not a correct livery for this much later LMS locomotive. And apparently that was quite controversial. Some people loved it. I mean, it was very, very popular because of how beautiful it was. But obviously train enthusiasts are involved here, so we have a fair degree of pedantry involved. A lot of people were upset that it was unrealistic, and I don't think it's painted into that livery anymore. My model is of course much more realistic in livery. It's a plain black. It looks serious, it looks ready for business, and it certainly was at 84 tons. The next loco is quite a surprise to see on this list. Where are we now? 8, is this 7 or 8? That's not very professional. I think it's 7, and it is this. This is the Great Central A5, weighing in at 85.9 tons. Ding dong, ding dong! That was deeply unnecessary. I just wanted to say this is the oldest of today's locomotives. Yeah, quite surprising to see a locomotive from 1911 on this list, but it was indeed 85.9 tons. A passenger locomotive, of course, absolutely massive, 462 wheel configuration. Back in the day, this would have been able to haul some genuinely massive passenger trains. And it's also probably the prettiest of today's engines as well, in this beautiful Great Central lined green livery. Yeah, a gorgeous one that. The next locomotive is also a passenger locomotive, and for this one we're going back to the LMS with this. This is the Fowler 4P tank, which is also a 264, but this is even larger. So this weighs in at 86.2 tons, so almost a ton more. And this one is a lot newer as well, of course, introduced in 1927 to the design of Henry Fowler. Now, the Fairburn tank that we've already seen was actually based on this locomotive, yet that was supposed to be a little bit lighter and more nimble, so there's a reason the Fairburn appears lower in the list than this. And the Fairburn tank, interestingly, would also be the basis for the next locomotive. So who would know it? A lot of Britain's largest tank engines actually are related to each other. I guess that does make sense. But anyway, beautiful LMS passenger steam locomotive in tank engine form. Always liked this. Beautiful, beautiful loco. Next then, we are into 6th place. I've figured out where I am on the list. That's good to know, isn't it? And this is the most modern of today's locomotives, I believe. So it is this one. This is the BR Standard Class 4 as introduced in 1951, and this weighed just a little bit more than the 4P, about half a ton more, at 86.7 tons. So this is the newest and most modern locomotive in this video, but it's also the most preserved locomotive in this video. Again, I believe there's no less than 15 of these things still in preservation, which means if you go to a heritage steam railway where there are steam trains running, there's a fairly strong chance there will be one of these around. If not in running order, then in a shed somewhere. So keep an eye out for these, lots of these still around. And you might not have known that this was one of Britain's largest tank engines. I didn't necessarily realise that either, but it was indeed. Right, we're going a little bit further back in time now, because we have to. We've seen the most modern one, haven't we? So we've got to go back in time, can't go forwards, because there are no more big tank engines. We're going back to the LMS with a Stanier design. Stanier, of course, not really known for his tank engines. He's more known for his large express passenger steam locomotives. Well, this tank engine of his was pretty large as well, and it might as well have been a tender engine, given how massive it is. And it is this. This is his 2-cylinder 264 tank. This was introduced in 1935, and this is a good bit heavier than the standard Class 4 at 87.9 tons. Now, fun fact for this loco, there was a 3-cylinder version of this engine, which is even heavier. The 3-cylinder version weighed in at 92 tons, I believe, which I had to double check. That is what the sources online are saying. That sounds wildly heavy for a 3-cylinder version of this tank engine, but apparently that is what it is. It's not in today's list, so don't criticise me if it's wrong, but apparently the 3-cylinder version was an absolute beast. But this is as well, of course, as a passenger locomotive, this certainly would have been able to haul a good sized train, and that's why it is in 5th place. For 4th place then, we have to visit a railway that we've not seen so far in today's video, and that is the LNER. This loco is this. It is the Thompson L1 tank, which was introduced in 1945. And I say this was an LNER locomotive. The first one was, I think it was just the first one possibly. The rest of them were built under British Railways, but it was an LNER design created by Thompson. So this weighed in at 89.94 tons. So this is the last locomotive in today's video, falling below the 90-ton threshold. And this was an interesting locomotive in real life, and quite arguably, its massive size would at least partly be its undoing. So it was a large, heavy locomotive, yet it had very small driving wheels, which had to spin pretty fast to achieve high speed. This was great for freight, of course, but for passenger work this caused a problem. The axle boxes were known to overheat on this locomotive, and they tried all sorts of things to fix it, but nothing ever worked. It was not a problem that was ever solved. So in lots of people's minds, this locomotive actually went down as a failure. In lots of other people's minds, they'll tell you, poppycock, there was nothing wrong with these things. Yes, they had a few axle box issues, but for the most part, they were reliable. Where do you fall? Let me know down in the comments. But it's a beautiful looking loco, certainly does look good in model form in front of a passenger train, and I've had no such overheating issues with mine. So in model form, enjoyable. In real life, possibly a little bit less enjoyable. Right, the next locomotive is the last tank engine to be considered a traditional looking tank engine. So if you are looking to be traditional, this may be the top item on your list. We're back with the Great Western, of course, and this is the 72XX from 1934, weighing in at 92 tons. What an unbelievable tank engine this is. So this actually has a few titles. It was the largest Great Western tank engine ever to be built, and it was the only 282 tank engine ever to be built in Britain. That's the wheel configuration. 2 pony wheels at the front, 8 driving wheels and 2 rear wheels at the back. Now this was originally designed to be a 280 locomotive without the 2 wheels at the back, but obviously such a large tank engine guzzled quite a lot of fuel, and they saw fit to build a larger coal bunker on the back. But the coal bunker was so large that it needed some support, and so the rear wheels had to be added to support the coal bunker. And so this very unusual 282 tank wheel configuration was born. So the locomotive in second place, unfortunately, I don't have anymore. And that's because the model was crap, and I sent it back to its manufacturer in a coffin-shaped box, hopefully never to darken my doorway ever again. But sodding hell, ever since I did that, and it was only this year, I've needed that loco for so many videos. So I am once again going to be relying on footage I shot of that model before I kicked it out of my house. So this is going to cause some arguments because, like I say, it doesn't seem like a traditional tank engine, but this is why I read out the definition, which I shall do again now for clarification. A tank engine is a steam locomotive carrying fuel and water receptacles in its own frame, not in a tender. So with that, the loco in second place is the bullied leader class. This was introduced in 1946, and it was a failure of a locomotive. If you want to know why it was a failure, you can check out the link up there. The model was a failure, but also the real thing was a failure. There's lots of confusing failures connected to the bullied leader. It may be considered a somewhat cursed locomotive, I don't know. But despite not looking like a steam locomotive at all, let alone a tank engine, I argue technically this is a tank engine. It does carry its own water and fuel on board within its own frame, and I think that does make this a tank engine, even if it is bending the definition of tank engine very slightly. And the weight of this thing was 150 tons, so it's wildly heavier than any of the other tank engines we've seen so far. Right, here we go then. The locomotive in first place, my heaviest tank engine, is of course the Hornby Pug. No, it isn't. Why does that keep happening? Okay, let's be serious. It's not even funny, is it? I don't know why I've done that twice now. I won't do it again. This is the last engine. It is this, the LMS Garrett. Now, maybe this is a bit of a naughty choice, because obviously this isn't a single vehicle. It's arguably got 3 frames, but none of them are tenders, right? And the water tank on this end is connected to the same frame as some driving wheels, and the coal bunker on this end is also connected to the same frame as the driving wheels. So I would argue this is a tank engine. It is articulated, but it is one vehicle. You know, you wouldn't say this is 3 separate vehicles. It is one thing. So is this a tank engine? Am I going to get shouted at? Even if it is a tank engine, I'll probably get shouted at for something else I've said, I don't know. But I would argue this is Britain's largest tank engine, at least in the locomotives I own. So this was introduced in 1930. I think earlier ones than 1930 were lighter than this, but the heaviest of the LMS Garretts did weigh in at 152 tons, so it beats the bullied leader by just a couple of tons. There we go. Hopefully I won't be in too much bother for that one. So there you have it, Britain's largest tank engines. Have I missed any out? And are there any tank engines that would belong in this list, except they just haven't been made in model form yet? What are those? Do let me know. You'll need to be quite an expert to have heard of all of the different tank engines, but I'm sure some will. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon for another video. All right, cheers folks, you take care.